Chapter 81. 81 Missing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 81 Missing. The two of them finally fell on the carpet, one grabbing the other's head while one grabbing the other's arm, twisting each other as if they wanted to strangle each other to death. Tang Susu had no choice but to wake up and let out a soft groan. The two of them immediately bounced up from the ground. Susu, how are you? I slept so comfortably. Tang Susu stretched lazily. She noticed the dark circles under their eyes and narrowed her eyes. Didn't any of you have a good rest these few days? The two of them shook their heads in unison. We slept all night as soon as we came back. So, we had 2 game sessions last night. Tang Susu didn't believe a single word and was about to get off the bed. Careful. You've slept for a few days and your bones are soft. Tang Mingqi squatted down and helped her put on a pair of snow-white wool sandals. Tang Mingchu followed her closely and put a soft knitted jacket on her. It was as if the two of them were busy fighting for her favor. Seeing that they were still fighting over her, Tang Susu couldn't stand it anymore and hurried out. As soon as she opened the door, she ran into her parents and eldest brother. The 3 of them came over with medicine and food. When they saw she was awake, they immediately pushed her inside. Why are you up already? Go back in and rest for a little more. After attending to her, Mr. Tang stayed behind and said earnestly, Susu. Tang Susu leaned against the bed and sat up nervously. Dad, just tell me what you have to say. Mr. Tang stammered, his old face blushing. Next time. Cough, if there was a next time, we could. We could have put on the invisibility talismans and quietly left them all behind. Forget about all of them. Tang Susu looked at him in shock. She had expected her family to say something similar to her, but she didn't expect Mr. Tang to be the first one to say it. Father Tang's eyes avoided her gaze as if he was embarrassed, but he continued firmly. Regardless, you can't be so reckless anymore. You're always the most important person to us in this world. We can't have anything happen to you. Besides, the world has changed. People's hearts are no longer what they used to be. Who knows what kind of people we're saving? Mr. Tang's eyes darkened at the thought of Ying Qingya. That was the child of a friend who he had watched growing up with his own eyes. She could manipulate everyone so easily. She did not even apologize and secretly ran away when everyone was not keeping an eye on her. In the afternoon, Tang Susu was finally allowed to step on the ground. She was then mysteriously brought to an underground storage by her brothers. They pushed the door open, and she instantly saw the banknotes and jewelry that filled up more than half of the storage. Tang Susu took a deep breath. She had never seen so much money in her entire life. She was almost blinded by it. Is this the reason you all look so tired? Tang Susu was pleasantly surprised, but she was also angry and distressed. You're already quite tired from going out to save those people for 2 days straight. Why didn't you rest after you came back? You even went out to search for so many valuables. What about your life? When Tang Mingzhou saw her face was red from anger, he quickly patted her head to comfort her. It's not a big deal. The bank has a special central vault hidden in a secret place, which stores a lot of valuables. Usually, it's transferred from one vault to another across the bank's major branches. We simply emptied the vault, and it's not tiring at all. In fact, if she had not woken up, they would have prepared even more things for her. You guys should rest too. Tang Susu grinned and threatened them. If you guys don't rest in the future, I won't rest either. The 3 of them were speechless. After they nodded, Tang Susu excitedly put all the money into the system. 008 suddenly floated up. After a while, a number popped out as if it was drunken. Your account has been finalized. The total amount of wealth you have accrued is 1.29 billion. After deducting your debt, you have 980 million remaining. Tang Susu then said without hesitation, I want to buy an interstellar artificial limb. The one that costs 300 million. The best for her brother, of course. Purchase complete. Installation manual is attached. With her wish fulfilled, Tang Susu dragged her brother up. She ran into Yu Cheng and the soldiers, as well as the other rescuers, and even their family members. They were all carrying things to visit her. Tang Susu had no choice but to hand the artificial limb over to her brother and let him deal with it himself. As it was a super high-tech interstellar equipment, the installation process should be relatively simple and not painful. Tang Mingzhou left with it in confusion. Yu Qing walked over and sized Tang Susu up, his eyes burning with concern. Are you feeling any better? He had seen her for 3 days, and no one had become more anxious than him. The strange thoughts that he couldn't understand before had become clear in the days of anticipation and disappointment. His heart was throbbing faster as he waited for Tang Susu's bright eyes to fall on him. Suddenly, someone barged in. Haha. It's all thanks to you. Otherwise, I would have died in great shame. The bearded soldier was very big and tall, and he directly blocked Yu Cheng's direct line out of sight while also attracting all of Tang Susu's attention. Yu Cheng mumbled, is it too late to send him back? Luo Feng patted his shoulder and said sympathetically, there's still a long way to go. The group of soldiers brought a lot of things to thank the Tang family. From food to fuel, to military bulletproof cars, there was even a helicopter parked on the roof of their building. He had asked Yu Cheng and found out that the Tang family didn't have a helicopter, so he had one issued for them and he was even prepared to teach them. Tang Susu immediately showed a strong interest. After greeting the others, she asked Luo Feng for advice on the spot. Luo Feng was surprised for a moment. He had thought that he was going to teach one of the 3 Tang brothers, but he did not expect the youngest daughter to be so enthusiastic. This kind of thirst for knowledge and her superb learning ability made Yu Cheng, who had been praised by her second uncle many times, felt shocked. The others suddenly understood why this delicate-looking girl was so strong and brave. Because she had the skills to back them up. While they were explaining the theoretical knowledge that non-professionals would have a hard time listening to, the Tang family was taking care of the others. In the beginning, everyone was a little tense, but slowly, they were touched by the harmonious atmosphere of the Tang family and gradually relaxed. These are some materials that we collected from the outside in the past 2 days. It's not much, but it's still a gift. You must accept it. Yeah, if it wasn't for your family bringing weapons and leading us in and out, we wouldn't have survived. The members of the Tang family looked at each other and accepted the gifts with a smile. After this battle, they had all established a principle. The book must be balanced. If others were treating them well, they would treat them well too. If others did not want to offer them anything, then there was no need for them to be so generous either. However, they still turned around and used all the ingredients that these people had given them and made them into delicious food. They filled the large table with dozens of dishes and they invited everyone to have dinner together. Come on, everyone. Sit down. Eat to your heart's content. Tang Susu had no choice but to stop asking questions and pour a cup of herbal tea for Luo Feng. Luo Feng, are you feeling a little hot? Do you want me to add an ice cube or 2 into the tea? Sure. After she turned around, Luo Feng couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat on his forehead. He whispered to Yu Cheng, this girl is too scary. If she continued to ask him questions, he would have nothing left to teach her. She might even stump him with her questions. When Tang Susu took the ice cube, she suddenly thought of the T3 crystal core. She rummaged through her system backpack and found no trace of it. Only then did she remember she had put it in her pocket. Since she had already changed into fresh clothes, she looked for her mother and asked. Did you see it? Mrs. Tang was confused and said, no, there's nothing in your pocket. Is it something important? Tang Susu's expression changed slightly. Chapter 82. 82 New Crisis. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 82 New Crisis. During the meal, everyone ate to their heart's content. Not only were there all kinds of stir-fried dishes that were no less delicious than those cooked by hotel chefs, but there were also dumplings, shabu-shabu, roast lamb chops, fried chicken, pizza, desserts, and fruit. Each of them was placed on a large plate, piled up to the top, and there was more than enough wine. However, no one touched the wine. In this post-apocalyptic world where danger could come at any time, they didn't dare to indulge themselves too much. They didn't even dare to sleep in. In the end, everyone simply picked up a drink and toasted each other. The joyous atmosphere was just like that of a family reunion during the Lunar New Year celebration. Tang Susu didn't have the time to think about the crystal core. She couldn't even eat in peace because she was worried about her brother's leg. After some time, just as she was about to go and take a look herself, she heard footsteps coming from upstairs. Every step he took seemed to be stepping on people's heartbeats. Steady and powerful. Everyone subconsciously put down their chopsticks and looked at the person. On the stairs, a handsome man with broad shoulders and a narrow waist was walking down at a steady pace. His smile was like a spring breeze, giving people a sense of security. "Oh my, so handsome!" someone gasped and mumbled excitedly. They were already amazed by the Tang family's good looks, and at this moment, they were all swayed by the man's charm. Moreover, they kept feeling that something was not quite right. The man in front of them seemed to have become even more eye-catching than before. "Big brother," Tang Susu looked at him with a smile. At that moment, the man could no longer remain calm. He walked swiftly, even a little hurriedly, to her. "Susu." The man's chest heaved as he lifted her up and turned her around in excitement. Thank you," Tang Mingzhou said as he slightly choked. He could not express his feelings even with 1,000 words. Tang Susu could feel that his strong arms were no longer trembling. He was no longer frowning when he carried heavy things because his legs couldn't support him anymore. She instantly broke into a big grin. "Quick, give me a few more twirls." Tang Mingchi had no words. "Show off." Tang Mingchu grumbled. Tang Mingzhou's parents, on the other hand, had their eyes fixed on his left leg when they noticed his movements. They seemed to have figured something out and looked at each other in disbelief, their eyes suddenly becoming a little moist. After playing around for a while, the atmosphere became even more uplifted. Outside the courtyard, Jean Dehai and the others were hidden in the darkness. Under the bright light, they saw dozens of people sitting around a long European table, eating meat and drinking soup in mouthfuls. Their faces were filled with happiness and satisfaction. They clenched their fists in anger. "They're eating all my food." When he remembered how he had discovered nothing there that day and how all his supplies were gone when he returned, Jean Dehai wished he could rush in and flip their tables. In a short period, the bespectacled woman's thin figure seemed to be thin enough to be carried by the wind. She stared blankly at the lamb chop in someone's hand and her lips moved. "I'm so hungry. When there were only the Tang family in there, we couldn't do anything. Now that there are so many people, we'll have plenty of opportunities." Jean Dehai bared his teeth, his expression sinister and terrifying. Just as they were about to turn around and leave, the dim street lights on the road went out one by one. Bang! 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 The sound of countless electrical appliances suddenly died, causing everyone who was eating to stand up in shock. "The power is out. Oh my God, the city's backup power system is down too. Water. Go and check the water." A lot of the people got up in a panic, stumbling and bumping into each other, but they had no time for that. They turned on the tap. Drip. Drip. Their hearts seemed to have stopped beating. In the dark, a figure sat firmly in her seat and ate the last mouthful of rice earnestly, not wanting to waste a single grain. From tomorrow onwards, everyone must store up water resources as soon as possible. The more, the better. The chaotic wailing instantly quieted down. The figure slowly stood up. And clothes, especially those that are for winter. It's best to prepare in advance. The zombie virus was only the beginning, and there were still countless more disasters coming to test the hundreds of millions of humans and all living things on Earth. Chapter 83. 83 Ing Chinya pocketed it. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 83 Ing Chinya pocketed it. Everyone ran back in a hurry because they didn't know where else to go. 3 days ago, they followed the Tang family to Tsuedi Lake Garden and temporarily stayed there. After they had arrived, they helped to clean up the zombies inside and assigned individuals to continue guarding the gates to prevent zombies from invading. For 3 days, they went out with the Tang family and the soldiers to collect supplies. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to live if they had nothing. However, during that time, their focus was on food. Especially high-energy and portable food. They had also found water, but it was not like this moment. It was as if they were forced into a corner and a voice in their head urged them to keep on finding more water. More water. More water. The Tang family had an electric generator. But to be cautious, they didn't use it immediately. Instead, they lit up candles and placed them on the classic candle stands, instantly illuminating a large area. The men cleaned up the table in silence. They were about to turn on the tap to wash the dishes, but they forgot that the water had already been cut off and were dumbfounded. Fortunately, they had a bottomless water storage device. They had collected a lot of water when they were on their way to Tsuedi Lake Garden. Mr. Tang pulled out a pipe and fiddled with it for a long time before the faucet could be used normally again. But how long can the water last? Mrs. Tang was feeling very insecure. It's such a small water tank. I feel like it'll run out of water if we're not careful. We should go look for some water too, right? In all honesty, they had already stored enough water for their family to drink for many years. However, Mrs. Tang still felt uneasy, especially when everyone else was busy preparing. She was also a little concerned. Tang Susu opened the system store and bought a few more water tanks. There were portable ones and bottomless ones. Other than drinking water, she also wanted to prepare more water for daily use. Although there were water-type metahumans who could conjure water later on, she couldn't guarantee that one of her family members would awaken to their water-type superpower. In addition, low-level water-type superpower could not be used to produce water easily, so water would still be very scarce. Let's go to the drinking water and mineral water plants to get some more water tomorrow. Everyone from the Tang family agreed. We'll also find some clothing to protect against the cold, as you said. We don't know when the weather will change, so we should be prepared as soon as possible. After the discussion, Tang Susu suddenly remembered something. That day when I fainted, did you pick up something that looked like a ruby? No, I didn't. A ruby. 2 voices rang out at the same time. Tang Susu looked at her Tang Mingchu. Did you see it? I put it in my pocket. I don't know if I dropped it by accident. I saw Ing Chinya bending down to pick it up, but I didn't know you dropped it. Tang Mingchu gritted his teeth. I ran over to ask, but she kept saying that it was hers. How can this woman be so shameless? The other's expressions changed. What's going on? What's that all about? Tang Susu pursed her lower lips. She didn't expect that things would turn for the worst. I've told you before. Starting from T2 zombies, energy crystals, which are also called crystal cores, will appear in their heads. They can stimulate humans to awaken their superpowers and can also upgrade their abilities. When the bases are established, the crystal cores will become a universal currency. In short, the higher the level of the zombie, the purer the crystal core is. The T3 zombie I killed at that time was already at the later stage of its evolution. The crystal core was also of particularly good quality, but unfortunately, when Ingqinya would awaken her special and rare healing power, she would be able to rope in more and more elites. They would most likely become her enemies. You mean this thing? All of a sudden, Tang Mingqiu extended his hand in front of her. And an extremely clear and red crystal core magically appeared in his hand. Chapter 84. 84. A surprise for her. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 84. A surprise for her. Tang Susu's eyes widened. Just as she was about to take and inspect it, the young man closed his hand and said smugly, "Who do you think is your favorite? Mingzhou, Mingqi, or me?" Tang Mingzhou and Tang Mingqi were speechless. "You, of course. Tell me what happened." Tang Susu answered without hesitation. The other two didn't even bother to argue with him, as they were all very curious about it, too. Tang Mingqiu shrugged casually and explained, "Everyone was only paying full attention to you at the time. No one noticed when and how this thing slipped. I don't know who it belonged to either. It's just that Ingqinya seemed to pay so much attention to it that I felt something was wrong. Then, I put an invisibility talisman on me and took it back when she wasn't paying attention." At this point, he couldn't help but reveal a peculiar and roguish smile. If she realized that the little precious thing that she had been obsessing about became something else, she would definitely be very surprised. In the middle of the night, in a villa, two figures walked into the bedroom, one after another. Xiaochen. The girl stopped hesitantly at the door and nervously pulled at the corner of her clothes. "Relax," the man gently rubbed his fingers at Ingqinya's chin gently. "Tell me. You brought those soldiers here because you wanted to save me, right?" Ingqinya's long eyelashes trembled slightly, and she bit her lip nervously. Her pearly white teeth damaged her alluring lips, causing the man's eyes to dim. "But you wanted to save more than me," Ingqinya's expression changed. "No. I just want to save more people. I don't mind if you approach me with a hidden motive. I can understand why you women want to find someone that can protect you in this hellhole," Xiaochen replied calmly. Ingqinya seemed to want to explain something, but he pressed her lips with his finger. "But I have my pride. If you want to become mine, then you can only be mine. If you can't. Since I used to like you, I won't leave you all alone, but that's all." After he finished speaking, Xiaochen simply pulled his hand away and slammed the door behind him. Ingqinya stood outside the door in shock. As the most iron-fisted among the male leads, how could he be so indifferent to her? Had she not done enough? Or had Tang Susu's change affected the plot? Darn it, it must be her. Her only role was that of cannon fodder, yet she had taken away so much of her limelight. She would bring her down a peg or two. Ingqinya no longer hesitated and opened the door, striding in. She silently hugged the man who was taking off his clothes, tipped her toes, and kissed him. Xiaochen couldn't hide his surprise and was about to push her down. "Xiaochen, I'm scared. Can I help you?" The young girl buried herself in his arms in embarrassment. She trembled slightly, like a pitiful, fragile flower. "How can you help me?" Ingqinya almost lost control of herself when she heard his hoarse voice. Yet, she enthralled this man completely. Ingqinya suppressed the delight in her heart. Her confidence in snatching Yu Qing back increased. She didn't just want to live just a peaceful life at the end of days. She wanted to dominate it and become the one above all. And the Tang family was just her stepping stone. After a long time, Ingqinya finally left Xiaochen's room with red eyes. She held on to the wall and retched a few times, but she couldn't care less about the pain and quickly returned to the room he had arranged for her. He had been following Xiaochen for the past few days and watched him recruit his father's former subordinates. He had his own squads, and she didn't dare to make any sudden moves under their watchful eyes. Finally, she could awaken her powerful superpower. They could never leave her ever again. Ing Qinya took out the crystal core from her pocket excitedly. She didn't know where Tang Susu got it from, but it was a T3 crystal core. At the next second, her expression froze. What is this? She looked at the cobblestone in her hand in disbelief. She wanted to crush it or burn a hole with her stare. It was still just a cobblestone. No. Impossible. My crystal core, my T3 crystal core. Chapter 85. 85 Interested. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 85 Interested. Tang Susu woke up before dawn the next day and tidied herself up. She couldn't help but smile when she thought about how her third brother had made Ing Qinya suffer. She thought that he was interested in Ing Qinya. She didn't expect him to play her like that without any hesitation. And Ing Qinya. This woman seemed to be trying her best to maintain her role as the female lead, but she couldn't describe what she was feeling about her other than there being a sense of discordance. Once she understood what was going on, she would definitely get rid of this threat. Every time she turned on the system screen, she felt like she was opening a game's user interface. She tapped a few times and looked at the weapons in her inventory. All the weapons she had collected from the arsenal were on display. For example, she had 500 Ultimax 100 light machine guns, 5 ZPU.44 barrel anti-aircraft machine guns, and 3 cluster bombs. She had a full page of them, including the guns and ammo she bought from the systems shop. There were more than 100 types of them. If she had so much equipment in the game, she could win with no difficulty at all. However, in the real world, these were just support weapons that could crush ordinary zombies as well as destroy ordinary hordes. The closer they got to the end, their melee combat ability would be tested. When threatened by high-level zombies, gunpowder could no longer cause any substantial damage. Therefore, Tang Susu searched the store and finally chose to buy the Moonblade. It had an archaic design and was forged from a special metal refined from meteorite ore. The blade was in the shape of a crescent moon and felt light in hand. However, it was extremely expensive, which would take her back 120 million. Because the ordinary knife from before was already dull, Tang Susu was more decisive this time. She had already reached the 3rd rank in her agile stance, which was very effective when used with the hacking knife. She would continue with her training in that technique. In addition, she had also chosen 2 cultivation methods suitable for her second and third brothers. The previous universal technique couldn't play to their strengths, so under 008's recommendation, she specifically bought 2 more that were much more difficult. Just as she was about to spend all her wealth points, she suddenly noticed a few more things. Spatial wallets, spatial backpacks, spatial briefcases, spatial rings, spatial bracelets, and spatial jades. Tang Susu couldn't move her eyes as they piqued her interest. If she could buy one for each of his family members, everyone would have a dimensional storage place in the future and it would be much more convenient for all of them. Even if they were separated by accident, they would not have to worry about the others not having supplies. As a rare superpower, they might not necessarily end up with space-type abilities. In fact, Tang Susu had been preparing for the possibility that they really couldn't awaken any superpowers, just like in the original setting. Therefore, she was not in a hurry to use the T3 crystal core. Instead, she put it in her system inventory and she would wait for the right time to take it out. At that moment, all she could depend on was to use her weapons, cheats, and martial arts to fight. As her parents were old, Tang Susu bought them a lot of self-defense equipment to ensure that they are safe to the best of her ability. Susu, are you up yet? Her family saw that she didn't come down and knocked on the door worriedly. After clearing her mind, Tang Susu took a breath and said, "We might encounter T2 and T3 zombies this time. We must be careful." The others looked at each other. To be honest, they got really little rest during the 3 days when she was unconscious. They were all fully focused on training. They just hoped that they could help her more so that she wouldn't have to worry about them anymore. However, they encountered a different kind of zombie during this time. Zombies that are faster, stronger, and more responsive. Tang Mingqiu asked. The T2s are like that, but starting from the T3s they will have all kinds of disgusting mutations. Like Cthulhu. Tang Mingqiu suddenly thought of something. Sort of, Tang Susu said as she remembered that this game had some Lovecraftian elements in it. She thought it was very interesting at the time. Now, she could only feel the chills in her spine. The family didn't even eat breakfast at the dining table. Everyone had a piece of biscuit in their mouths and took a few buns as they left. They split into two teams and quickly jumped into the car. Although Tang Susu had taken the super heart pill, she was not allowed to drive this time. Tang Mingqiu was not allowed to drive either. On the way back from the rescue mission, he damaged a car. He was someone that could make them run out of vehicles. The twins sat in the back, feeling oppressed. In their boredom, they played single-player games on their Steam Deck. Not long after the two cars left, Jin Dehai appeared from behind the trees. He sneered and glanced at the villa where the new members were staying. He needed to think about who he should start with. Chapter 86. 86 Roadblock. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 86 Roadblock. Along the way, the mechanical voice of, "You died," kept on echoing in the car. Tang Mingqiu refused to accept it. "I won't accept that I can't beat this level." Tang Susu exchanged her deck with him. She couldn't connect to the internet now, so all she could play were mini-games. The more he played, the more annoyed he became. Meanwhile, Tang Susu felt a little bored. Thanks to her smooth control, the character was able to dodge left and right, evading countless attacks. Then, the character jumped onto a flagpole. Tang Susu's fingers moved quickly on the screen, and the character easily crossed all the obstacles and arrived at the next level. Tang Mingqiu, who had already died countless times at this stage, couldn't say a word. When he lowered his head to look at his sister's screen, he found out that she had cleared all the levels. He instantly felt that he had just received the biggest blow of his life. Tang Susu didn't notice his helpless look. She remembered something and took out a paper map from her backpack. It was so detailed that even the minor roads were marked clearly. Then, she manually navigated her big brother. The first place they were going to was a drinking water plant in the town of Luqiu, which was under the jurisdiction of Nancheng. This was also the only drinking water processing plant in the city. If someone wanted to store a large amount of water, they would definitely not ignore this place. They had to act as quickly as possible. Otherwise, they might get nothing even after all the hard work. Turn right at Guaning Road and onto the highway. It might be faster. Tang Mingzhou did not hesitate and drove over without a word. Tang Mingqi followed closely behind. The two of them drove so steadily that even Mr. and Mrs. Tang started to doze off. They were woken up by a noisy argument and were shocked. What's going on? The entrance to the highway was blocked. If we want to pass, we have to pay up using supplies. Tang Mingqi sneered and waited for the reply from the car in front. In fact, he was waiting for his little sister's decision. Tang Susu didn't want to waste any more time and said, "Turn around and enter from the next entrance." Almost as soon as she finished speaking, someone violently knocked on their car window. "Get out of the car, all of you." Seeing that the people in the car didn't respond and didn't even roll down the window, the bearded man cursed and pointed his rifle at Tang Mingzhou in the driver's seat. "Are you deaf? Get out, now." Tang Mingqiu pulled out his gun. No one saw how he got out of the car, but he was already pointing his gun's muzzle at the bearded man's head provocatively. "Do you want to see whose gun is faster?" The bearded man's face darkened. Obviously, this group was not a group that could be trifled with. Tang Susu noticed his movements and quickly pushed the door open and got out of the car. The bearded man threw a punch at her brother's face. Everyone roared out in shock. They could almost imagine how badly this handsome young man would be beaten up, just like the one who was still curled up in the corner. In the next second, the young man's slender fingers easily caught the bearded man's fist, blocking his swift attack. Then, with a smile, crunching sounds of bones being crushed could be heard, as if he was not spending any effort at all. What replaced it afterward was the bearded man's painful wails. Tang Susu heaved a sigh of relief. She had almost forgotten that the effects of the strength pill they had taken was still active. The bearded man's accomplices saw the situation was not looking good and immediately rushed over from the back. Almost everyone had a gun in their hands and they all pointed it at Tang Mingqiu. "Let go of your hands." The young man scoffed and then said, "Get out of our way." They wouldn't be afraid if he showed even the slightest bit of fear. "Sure," the leader said immediately. "You don't have to hand over your supplies. We can even give you some more, but can we exchange it for a car?" That was a bulletproof military vehicle that could withstand bullets on the battlefield. He had to get one. No, he wanted both cars. And the attractive young lass beside him too. Chapter 87. 87 Danger and Kidnapped. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 87 Danger and Kidnapped. Then, how much supplies are you willing to spare to exchange for it? Tang Susu blinked her eyes curiously as if she couldn't hold back her excitement, which made them secretly laugh. How about half a month's worth of supplies? It's not that easy to find things these days. Those zombies are so strange. They seem to have figured out a pattern and know that we are going to supermarkets and stores. They are all gathering there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this kind of business. We have children and old people at home too. If we don't think of a way, our whole family will starve to death. The leader had an affable, round face, and it was very deceptive, as he told them his grievances and showed some sincerity. Even the people in the cars that he had stopped sighed. It's difficult for everyone in this world. Just as Tang Mingqiu was about to lower his guard, the atmosphere suddenly changed. A bullet suddenly shot out from the dark. It happened so fast that no one had time to react. Their lips curled into a mocking smile. After they killed this martially able young man, they would capture the weak little girl. Look at her. Her family must have pampered her all the while. Let's see if they still dare to not hand over their things. Just as the round-faced man was about to seize the opportunity to grab Tang Susu, the girl with her hands in her pockets and a relaxed posture moved. Doviko in the nick of time, she grabbed the bearded man, who was twice her size and pulled him easily. With a bang, the high-speed bullet penetrated his brain, and blood splattered everywhere. The bearded man didn't understand what had happened when he died. He fell to the ground with his eyes wide open. Everyone was silent for 2 seconds. Then, there was a wave of screams, accompanied by desperate fleeing. Help! Someone's dead. How treacherous! When Tang Mingqiu realized he had almost lost his life, he hurriedly grabbed Tang Susu's hand and said, "Let's go back in." At that moment, a second bullet was quietly fired again. As if it was to provoke them, a man who was running past was shot in the forehead and died with his eyes open. The next shot was aimed at Tang Susu, who was trying to get into the car. She sensed something and quickly dodged. The bullet hit the bulletproof car, creating a dazzling spark, and the pursuit continued. Bang! 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 Tang Susu was forced to move further and further away from her brother's car. In the dangerous situation where the bullets didn't stop, Tang Susu beautifully flipped over the roof of the car and quickly retreated into the shadows of a bigger car. She was infuriated. System. Help me lock onto the sniper's position. System. There was silence. At the same time, Tang Mingqiu hurriedly drove to her side. Susu, get in now. Tang Mingzhou followed the direction where the bullet came from and saw a figure disappearing on top of a building in front of him. He squinted his eyes and quickly lowered the car window a little. From the window, he extended an even more powerful Barrett M82 sniper rifle. He aimed at the target and was about to pull the trigger. Susu. Mr. and Mrs. Tang shouted in a panic, and it made his hand tremble. It made him deviate from his target's position. The gunshot alerted the target and disappeared without a trace. As for Tang Susu, just as she was about to get into her second brother's car, the round-faced man who had been lying in ambush at the side suddenly attacked. She couldn't dodge in time and was about to avoid the worst of it all when her body suddenly tensed up. A power arm came out of nowhere and wrapped itself around her waist and then pulled her up. Tang Susu felt everything was spinning rapidly, and she fell into a car. A faint, foreign, yet somewhat familiar wintry aura swept over her. What made her heart skip a beat was that the moment the car door was closed, the car beneath her sped away like a rocket. Damn it! Tang Mingqi watched helplessly as his sister was taken away. He stepped on the accelerator and quickly gave chase. Chapter 88. 88 Mind Control. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 88 Mind Control. The round-faced man was almost hit, and he dodged away. Before he could even stand up straight, a flower of blood bloomed between his eyebrows. Tang Mingzhou coldly pulled back his gun, turned the steering wheel, and sped off. Everything had only happened within a few minutes. The others didn't get very far before the Tang family left in a hurry, leaving them shocked and unable to control the fear inside of them. They're too powerful. But who was that person just now? He actually kidnapped that young girl. It's not that group of people, right? Who knows? Hurry and get our supplies back. As soon as the group left, more than a dozen people appeared. The leader was wearing a black sleeveless shirt, revealing a tattoo of a green wolf's head on his arm. His bulging muscles demonstrated his absolute strength. A pure, innocent young girl who seemed to have only recently left the depths of the forest followed him. What's going on? Sui is dead. Shi Xiaochen couldn't believe it as he turned the corpse over and examined him. His heart sank. This man was once a capable man serving his father. He was very smart and capable. If he could have recruited him, he would definitely be of great help to him. However, he had just found him, and he was already dead. Who did this? It was a young girl and her family. A lean man with a sniper rifle walked over, his expression a little dark. I've never failed before. I won't let them off next time. What he didn't say was that he had almost been hit. It was the biggest shame in his history as a sniper, and it was something that had tarnished his history. Bnoel de Ming Qinya pondered for a while and suddenly exclaimed in surprise, was it the Tang family? Shi Xiaochen suddenly remembered that cunning girl and frowned. What's going on? How did they get into conflict? Sui's subordinate stammered and didn't know how to explain. After all, the man in front of them had given up his inheritance and the family business because of his disagreement with his father. Although he now had the intention of inheriting the mantle, they didn't know what kind of person he was. Shi Xiaochen hated people who wasted time the most. What exactly happened here? Maybe they got into a fight, somehow, Ing Qingya said softly. The Tang family seems to be the type that forces their way through things. In other words, they would casually dispatch people they didn't like. Shi Xiaochen furrowed his eyebrows and asked, they left. Which direction? When Ing Qingya heard that the girl, who was likely to be Tang Susu, had been taken away by a mysterious man, she was secretly getting excited. It would be best if she was killed and never came back. In the army-green vehicle that was moving at high speed on the highway. With no hesitation, Tang Susu reached out her hand and aimed for the other party's weak point. However, when she touched the man's bone-chilling skin, she subconsciously retracted her fingers from the coldness. The man slowly opened his dark eyes and looked at her emotionlessly. He looked like a cold machine. Tang Susu was shocked. It was him. No wonder the system was gone again. She knew that this person was probably nearby. Who are you? Tang Susu looked at him with anger in her eyes. Why did you take me here? You remember me. It was a statement with no room for doubt. Of course. She still remembered how he had pushed her off the bed and the two inexplicable fingerprints. However, for some reason, she suddenly felt that something was amiss. She asked, why should I remember you? Have we met somewhere before? Shen Jiding furrowed his brows. He couldn't read this girl's mind. Tang Susu, a gentle and deep voice rang out, carrying a terrifying power that could suck away one's soul. It made Tang Susu's head feel heavy for a moment. The next second, she struggled to wake up. What was that? Did this person have a psychic-type superpower? He wanted to mind control her. Tang Susu was angry and knew what happened on the inside, but on the outside, she pretended to be thrown into a daze. She wanted to see what he was up to. Chapter 89. 89 Kill him. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 89 Kill him. The young girl's tense expression suddenly relaxed, and her pretty little face revealed a bit of fragility. Shen Jiding lowered his gaze and his cold eyes swept over her eyebrows, which had furrowed slightly before slowly relaxing. She was docile and gentle, as if she would be an easy bully target. It differed from her performance he had seen in the car recently. She was so confident and fierce that it even made him suspect she was the person that pulled all the strings. Shen Jiding's eyes narrowed slightly, and he was about to force out the information he wanted to know. The driver in front suddenly shouted. Ah! Where is this place? How did I end up here? Seeing that he was about to stop the car and the Tang family was in hot pursuit to close in on him, the man's sharp eyes glanced over and he continued to assert control over the driver. His already pale lips became even paler. It was at this moment that the girl beside him, who was supposedly in a daze, suddenly moved. She held his shoulder with one hand and was going to strangle him while her other hand was aimed at the back of his neck. Shen Jiding's eyes were filled with brutality. For a moment, the temperature in the car seemed to have dropped into the negatives and even Tang Susu couldn't help but shiver. The man grabbed her wrist and then folded her arm behind her back. Then, her body was pushed against the seat with a thump. Tang Susu gritted her teeth in anger. She was about to turn the tables with an elbow strike. Her back had just arched when the figure behind her suddenly collapsed, and a heavy figure pressed down on her. Tang Susu almost exploded. The driver in front suddenly screamed, "Ah! Where is this? How did I end up here?" Tang Susu was speechless. "Stop the car." Amidst the screeching of the emergency brakes, Tang Susu crawled out from under the unconscious man with frustration. She could not help but shiver again. Did this person just escape from the Antarctic? His body temperature was not something a normal person should have. Ho! Host! As soon as 008's timid voice rang out, Tang Susu knew the person had really fainted. At this moment, the car door was pulled open from the outside. "Susu. Are you okay?" "I'm fine." A few more fingerprints were left on Tang Susu's delicate wrist. She rolled up her sleeves to cover the traces. "Who is he?" Tang Mingqi frowned as he helped her out and glanced at the man in the car coldly. To her surprise, she found the person was so handsome that he didn't look like someone real. It was like he came out of a comic. There was also a faint sense of familiarity, as if she had seen him somewhere before. The others ran over, pulling Tang Susu to the side, and asked about her well-being. After making sure that she was not injured, they turned to look at the unconscious man with fury on their faces. What does he want? Tang Susu also wanted to know. This person knew her. Obviously, he had asked about her or investigated her. Could it be the hacking incident? Who are you? Why are you in my car? The driver scratched his head in confusion before flying into a rage. What are you waiting for? Get him out of here. Tang Susu turned to 008 suddenly. Do you want to kill him? If she had dealt with this person, the system would not have to cut off contact with her from time to time and it would not disturb her at critical moments. Most importantly, she didn't know what this person's intention for her was. But she couldn't figure out how strong he was. It was better to take his life while he was still weak. The more Tang Susu thought about it, the more tempted she became. She was ready to make a move. Calm down. 008 shouted anxiously. Such a powerful person must have a sophisticated background. Killing him might get us into more trouble than not. Tang Susu had thought about it before. However, even she found facing such an opponent who could control others difficult. If she waited for him to wake up. Tang Susu squinted her peach-shaped eyes. She was resolved to kill him again. Wait. 008 cried out. I didn't finish telling you last time, but there's still another way. Chapter 90. 90 Another Way. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 90 Another way. When she saw that her family had carried the unconscious man out and sent the driver on his way, Tang Susu then asked, what other way? Have you forgotten that before the apocalypse, I told you that if you trust someone, you can tell them about my existence? Using the same logic, if you trust him, his threat to the system will basically disappear. Turn him into someone I can trust. Tang Susu thought for a moment. Forget it then. It's easier to kill him. ENV008 was speechless. When she saw that the system was getting anxious, Tang Susu smiled. But I'm not sure what he wanted me for and whether he has any ill intentions, and what consequences there will be for me if I kill him. I guess we'll decide after we figure it out. As for whether he must be killed or not, Tang Susu's competitive spirit was stirred. The next time they fight, she would definitely be the one to beat him down. He is really good looking. So handsome. Mrs. Tang couldn't help but be impressed when she saw Tang Susu was coming over. Mr. Tang was furious. Good looking, didn't you say you wanted to give him a good scolding when he took Susu away just now? I can scold him, yes, but that doesn't mean he's not good looking. Tang Susu was speechless. What was the saying again? Draco in leather pants. That as long as the villain was handsome and romantic, anything he did could be forgiven. Someone's coming from behind. Tang Mingzhou reminded him in a low voice, there's many of them. Don't seem friendly. It's Ying Qingya and her lackeys. 008 immediately reported. Let's go. We've wasted too much time as it is. I don't think we'll even be able to make it back tonight. Tang Susu didn't want to get into a conflict with them for the time being. She got into the driver's seat and suddenly realized something. Take him along. Tang Mingqi and Tang Mingchu originally wanted to shove the man into the trunk, but the man was too tall and had long legs, so it was impossible to stuff him in. Without a choice, they had to throw him into the back seat, go back to their respective seats and fasten their seat belts. I see them. The two cars in front. Sua's men exclaimed excitedly, it's them. Shi Shaochen's handsome face darkened. Hurry and stop them. Brother, keep up with me. Tang Susu raised her eyes and looked in the rearview mirror. The corners of her pink lips curled up slightly. She stepped on the clutch, shifted gears, and stepped on the accelerator in one go. It was so fast that Tang Mingzhou, who was sitting next to him, was almost dazzled. In an instant, the car had already moved 100 meters away, putting a vast distance between them and the cars behind them. The people behind them were about to catch up with them, but the distance between them grew instantly. They yelled out anxiously, they're getting away again. Why aren't you speeding up? Shi Shaochen's expression turned dark. In the end, the distance between the two parties was getting wider and wider. If this continued, he would lose them soon. Trash, get out of here. He pulled the driver out of the driver's seat and got in without even giving him time to get back into the car. With a burst of speed, the needle on the speedometer went up. 20, 40. 100, 140. The speed of the car was so fast that the scenery outside the window became only a blur. Ying Qingya's face turned pale. She remembered that Shi Xiaoqian liked to gamble his life in car races. She couldn't care less about her anger and begged in a trembling voice, "Xiaoqian, slow down. Something can easily happen like this." Although they were on the highway, it differed completely from the smooth road conditions in the past. Many of the cars on the highway were severely warped from the crashes and were strewn all over the place. Some places were so narrow that only half a car could pass through. Zombies in groups of 2 or 3 were using their sharp claws to tear out the bodies stuck in the cars so that they could stuff them into their mouths. When they realized that a living person was approaching, they were startled for a moment before they pounced on the car fiercely. However, the car had already sped past like a flash of lightning, bringing up a cloud of dust. Tang Susu still had the time to glance at the man in the back seat, as if she didn't know that someone was chasing after her. "What happened to him, system? When will he wake up? You'll need to purchase a set of medical testing equipment to investigate health issues. It just so happens that this kind of equipment is on sale right now, and one set only costs 1 billion. If you don't buy it, you won't lose anything though, then I won't." Her next step was to buy some dimensional storage for her family, and she was still far away from achieving her goals. "Brother," Tang Susu slowed down to keep her car side by side with the other car. "You go out at the next exit. Best to do it when they can't turn around when they're about to catch up. I'll lure them away. They would reach their destination in half an hour." She didn't want to lead them there and snatch the supplies from her. If they found out that she had taken everything and suspected that she had some space-related ability or something, it would become a pain.